Good morning, Karen, and it's a privilege to be in your program. I miss your program. I have not been guested for the longest time, right?
Yes, because you've been on Market Edge with the Banco Central. But
Right.
let's start with this, all right? You were not in the names, so to speak, that were leaked in the beginning, because you have a fixed term with the BSP. People need to know this. Am
That's
I right?
right.
So you have an extra year left with the Banco
Correct.
Central.
I'm supposed to finish my term July next year. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
what made you say yes? What happened?
Well, duty calls, I think, because right now we have a very good team at the BSP. I know that Philip Medalla is a good replacement for me, and the president says he needs somebody who will be responsible for running the economy, and that's it. So how can you refuse the president who was elected by 31 million Filipinos? So that's the story.
Did it take you a long time to decide?
Yeah, there's some doubts. Yes, I resisted as much as I can, but there were a lot of people calling me, so I finally gave in.
Okay, I'm curious. Was Felipe Medalla, was he a condition that you gave Mr. Marcos for you to take the finance secretary post?
No such condition. But I told him that I already talked to Philip Medalla, and he's willing to take over, because Philip Medalla's term also ends at the same time that my term will end. So he's got an extra year also.
All right. So as the incoming finance secretary, you're faced with a lot of challenges. And let me make it simple. Walang pera ang gobyerno. Right? That's what they often say. Kulang daw, secretary. I think right now, the budget department has recommended just a 200 billion peso increase for 2023 for Mr. Marcos's first year in office, which some would say would not be enough considering the needs post-pandemic. What is the plan?
You know, I think I have the benefit of having served the government for around more than 30 years, and I've seen all the crises. We're in a better position now than before. I've seen a debt to GDP ratio close to 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen the worst of the Philippines. At that time, we're heavily indebted. And we had a hard time arguing with the IMF on our program. Now we don't have an IMF program. We are a net contributor to IMF. Before our foreign exchange reserves was only maybe down to 2 weeks worth of imports. Now it's more than 9 months worth of imports. We're in a better place right now. And in fact, this administration, the Duterte administration, is going to leave to the incoming administration a much better tax structure than before, and it raises more taxes. So I'm not worried about the level of the debt. For example, that's 63%. That's easily manageable because as long as the economy can grow at 6 to 7%, which was our record before the crisis, we can easily outgrow our debt. And most of our debt are domestic rather than foreign.
Okay.
So the problem now is, how do you come up with a fiscal consolidation program? Because right now our deficit is in the neighborhood of 7% of GDP. Yeah. We want to go back to 3% of GDP. And I think we have a plan for that.
And would raising taxes be a part of the plan?
You know, taking a bird's eye view of our situation, our problem really is to get back on our growth trajectory, because that will solve a lot of problems. If we grow at 6 to 7%, that solves our tax revenue problem. That will solve our deficit problem. That will solve our debt problem. That will solve our concern for. I heard RC talking about poverty reduction. Yeah. You know, we were almost there. Our target under this administration is we will reduce poverty to 14%. We're almost there. It was 18% a year ago. Now, but of course, the pandemic got in the way.
2 years.
But I think, given our plan, we will be able to reduce poverty to single digit by the end of this administration.
You
So
believe that?
everything
Wow,
goes to growth. And so our focus should be how do we make all sectors grow, okay? Because there are some laggards like agriculture was not growing all these years, okay? We have to focus on that. Mining that was stopped for a while. It is now back. So we have to make sure that all sectors of the economy will grow.
Okay. All right. These are very strong points. Okay. I'm just going to catch you on some of them. Number one, would you say that you would be a continuation of this administration's economic and finance policies, or Secretary, you are taking it to a different level? Will there be a different approach on your end? Because clearly you've been a witness already to this administration. You've been part of it.
Definitely, I will provide the link because, as you said, I was with the central bank. I'm talking to the monetary authority. You know, we keep saying on the inflation, it is actually the national government's responsibility.
And you were with budget too.
I was in the budget.
Don't forget that.
So, of course, that, you know, my assignments in the last 30 years involves the Development Budget Coordination Committee. That's where NEDA is, that's where DBM is, that's where Central Bank is, that's where Department of Finance is. So I've covered everything we called it the Development Budget Coordination Committee. And they just changed our target for this year. It's going to be 7 to 8%. And I think that's doable because the economy grew by 8.3% in the first quarter. And I think the second quarter will do even better because remember there was a surge in January this year.
Yeah.
So first quarter, even with the surge, grew by 8.3%. So I'm still doable. I'm more than 8%.
Okay, so Secretary, offhand is the issue is really the challenge is how to raise revenues. And of course, there's the issue of tax efficiency collection,
Correct.
There's customs, there's lessening smuggling. We've heard that from Mr. Marcos, which is where the executive comes in, the effectivity of executive leadership. But I want to ask you this, raising revenues, number one, for example, would selling government property be something that you as a finance secretary would suggest? One that's been floated is, for example, selling the land in Napahiya, which is 646 hectares, help pay off the loan, and build airports elsewhere.
Well, privatization, we call that privatization, is another option. But as I said, to me, the focus should be to sustain growth, because by sustaining growth, you solve your tax problem. Because when the economy is growing, our tax collection is also growing because it's what economists call elastic. Okay, so the higher the growth, the higher the tax collection. So that solves it. Plus, we also changed the structure of the tax. We now cut our personal income tax. We cut the consumption corporate income tax. We increase the tax on cigarettes and liquor. And so the tax structure that we are going to leave to, I'm talking of my transition, right? The tax structure that this government will leave to the next government is much, much better than the tax structure that we inherited from the previous government. So to me, grow the economy, focus on tax administration first, okay? As you said, improve the collection. And we have also done something on the collection. I understand that 99% of tax payments now are done digitally. Yeah. That's a major improvement. So you don't have to line up. You don't have to go to the BIR regional offices, line up and pay. You can do it digitally. That is more efficient and it reduces corruption. Okay.
And just very quickly, I also have questions here from viewers who are obviously in business, who want to know where you're going with this. But quickly on tax reform, there are two more pending packages here. One that tackles real property valuation reform, and the other one is passive income and financial, the Intermediary Taxation Act. Would you be pushing for these two additional packages, Secretary?
Yes, as long as Congress is willing to move this quickly, yes, we are going to This is only one of the things that we are going to look into. Okay, it's not priority, but if the Congress is willing to pass this, so much, that's gravy. Okay, but as I said, the key is grow the economy, and then everything will follow.
Okay, so number one, will Secretary Diokno, number one, quickly, will you push for new tax measures the first year of Mr. Marcos's term?
Except for that residual, the last two parts of the tax reform that will be bequeathed that we will inherit, that's fine. Okay. Other than that, I think we should stop first looking at tax reform. Well, what I'm saying is we are happy with the present tax structure. It's the implementation. Okay.
All right. Number two, will Secretary Diokno push for more private-public partnerships, bring in the private sector even more than the Duterte administration did?
Definitely. And you know what's the difference between the Duterte administration and the incoming administration? Mm-hmm. When we came in, we don't have a long list of shovel-ready or implementation-ready projects. And it takes about a year or two to come up with a new project. Now we're going to leave to this administration some more than 80 projects, and they can do it public-private. And you know the background for that is that we have this recently passed Public Service Act. Mm-hmm. This is a 90-year project. Now foreigners can come in 100%, and they can invest in telco, they can invest in airports, can invest in shipping. So there are lots of projects that they can enter 100%.
All right. Another question now is digitalization. All right. How will this, I guess, grow exponentially during Marcos's term? Because in an interview, Mr. Marcos said he wants to prioritize, of course, with digitalization, na huli ang Pilipinas kumpara sa ating mga kapitbahay.
That's true. That's also my personal advocacy. When I came into the BSP, I said, I want at least half of all transactions to be in digital form. And we're fairly close to it. And thanks to the pandemic, okay, now people don't want to go to the banks or go to the stores. It's through digital payments. So we're fairly close to it. The other goal that I have when I came in is that I want 70%, at least 70% of all Filipinos to have financial accounts. In other words, they should participate in the financial system. And I think this government also has a program for what they call e-GovPay. So now if you want to do business with government electronically, you want to pay taxes electronically, and so forth and so on. That is now on stream. And I think it's now a matter of maybe inviting more foreigners to invest in telco, because that's where we need, right? The capacity for Wi-Fi or something like that. Okay.
Okay. And of course, this administration, its main mantra was build, build, build. But let's face it, there were targets that were missed. Would you tweak that for the Marcos administration? Mr. Marcos said he would like to continue build, build, build. But how would you, being the finance secretary, you have a lot of, actually, you can steer the ship on this one, on the priorities. Where would you go with build, build, build?
Now, again, on speaking of continuity, I'm part of that build program. In fact, I initially called it Golden Age of Infrastructure. Why? Because during the last...
Would you return that term now under Mr. Marcos?
Definitely, because during the last 50 years, before the Duterte administration, we're spending less than 2% of our GDP for infrastructure. That's why we got this reputation as having the poorest infrastructure in this part of the world, right? Yeah. So we plan to have infrastructure spending as percent of GDP to be around maybe 5 to 6%. And we did. Okay, it
Yeah.
averaged about 5.8%. I think that should be continued because it creates a lot of jobs, high quality jobs, and it expands the capacity of the economy. Okay, because now you got better airports, better seaports, and being an archipelagic island, we really need shipping to be super efficient. So I think that should continue. We should link what I call the lagging regions to the leading regions so that you create a lot of opportunities along the way.
Okay. All right. Another question is with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, of course, tax collection. I remember there's been administrations where the BIR had really focused on collecting from big business, right? And recently, BIR was in the news with one of the conglomerates in the Philippines. And let me say, Mega World has issued a statement to say that they are not remiss in any of their taxes to balance this conversation. But what is your take on the recent news with the BIR, and I guess moving forward with businesses as well?
Well, I have not looked into that specific issue, but I think what is important on any tax system is that it's got to be fair and perceived to be fair by everyone. Okay, so you should not be using it for any particular purpose, but other than raising taxes for the government. So you should show fairness.
Harassment.
Correct. You should show fairness so that people will willingly pay, and of course they recognize that you need taxes to finance priority projects of the government. So they should also see where the taxes are being used. That's very important. Transparency, openness. Where are our taxes going? Okay.
Okay. Now, with the outgoing President Duterte, he was quite, one would say, hands off in terms of his economic team, right? That would be fair to say. His economic team was quite independent. It steered its own ship. There was a lot of trust. Would you say it would be the same leadership style with Mr. Marcos, or because Mr. Marcos knows more about the economy when he speaks about it, do you feel it's a different leadership style?
You know, I've served under 4 presidents.
Yeah.
Aquino, the first Aquino, Cory Aquino, Estrada, Duterte, and now Bongbong Marcos.
Yeah.
I think being a president, you should not micromanage. Very important. That's very important. You may know something, but don't try. That's why you have a cabinet. You choose the best and the brightest and give them, empower them so that you won't be burdened by all the problems in the world. Okay. So the best and the brightest, strong cabinet, I think that works. But if you micromanage, that will be your downfall. Okay.
Okay. Now, you've served 4 presidents. My last question is, but let's face it, this may be your last post. Is that fair? I mean,
correct.
We're all human. We all age.
That's too much. Yeah.
Let's face it, right? So you will be remembered for this one, most likely. Are you frankly pressured, sir?
No. I on any job, I just do the best I can, given the resources, and look for the best way to execute whatever assignment I have, and to make sure that the institution that I'm associated with will be in a much better place than the institution that I inherited. That's always my case. Improve on what you were presented with, right? So that will still be my mantra.
All right. On that note, well, congratulations to you, sir. And I wish you well.
Thank you, Karen.